How you make this, Jay?
Welcome back to the locker room. I am Captain Paul. That is Fajardo. How's it going on, Fajardo?
I'm living, making it through the day. That's it.
So, we have been very busy within our own personal lives. We apologize. The previews for the next season have been a little bit hindered, but we're getting back on schedule. We're going to be tackling the Western Conference Central Division of the NHL. Really excited to get back into this. Before we get into this long show, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's really cool. We have 45 subscribers. A lot of the videos have been getting a lot of views, so we appreciate that. Anything else to add there before we get into it?
No, obviously this is brought to you by one of our sponsored, Groovy J. We appreciate the beats. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Groovy J. And you know what? Let's start with a team that doesn't really have an arena.
Yeah.
We're kind of in an interesting situation with the Arizona Coyotes. This is a team that is struggling. I mean, not just on the ice, off the ice as well. And before we get into the preview, I have to actually ask this to you. Do you think Arizona will stay in Arizona in 5 years from now? Do you think they'll still be there?
I mean, they normally have a pretty good fan base, but lately, obviously, the team hasn't been good, so they've been losing that fan base. And then with so many other, so many other states close by that have real good quality teams, it's hard to see them staying in Arizona. I do expect them to move. Where? No clue yet. But I unless something turns around within the next season or two, I see them moving within the next 5 years for sure.
I mean, like for me as a guy watching how this franchise has been kind of really poorly run, it's I don't know how much longer it's going to last. You have viable markets even down south, like in Houston, that would probably support a hockey team. There are people that argue, as Arizona Coyote fans, that the place of where the rink was hurt because it was a pain in the ass to get to. So maybe if they had something a little bit more viable for an arena, we could be looking at something very different. But they're currently going to be playing at Arizona State University's college hockey arena that like a whopping 5,000 fans. So this is kind of an embarrassment to the NHL. So let's get right into it. Let's kind of go into the roster construction of these Arizona Coyote Hockey Club. I mean, you got Clayton Keller, $7.1 million. That's the high man on this roster. And, I mean, you see some nice players here, but a bunch of role guys, nothing that really kind of sticks out as superstar, right? Mm-hmm. On the back end, you got Chikrin, who's a really good defenseman. He's young still. He's a guy I could see kind of really maybe developing that next step, next level. You have Ghost Despair, who's a solid NHL defender. There's nothing crazy on this roster, and let's just kind of break it down in the depth chart because they have over $20 million in cap space, so they could add if they needed to, but they're not going to be adding. So let's break down the forwards. Fajardo, who sticks out to you right now?
Let's see. Out of the forwards, it's one of those that there's nobody that's like super outstanding, right? Their best player is Clayton Keller. He's a long-term man, right? So he's the one who needs to kind of be that anchor. Outside of that, I mean, you're looking at Nick Schmaltz. That's it, really. I mean, everybody else is kind of just role-playing, just average at best, So nobody on their current roster that really wows you and really says, okay, I can take the team and put it under my wing and let's go. This is the way we should be.
Yeah.
So it's really hard as far as like all their players. There's no real, big leadership. I know they added like Patrick Nemeth, but I mean, let's be honest, the only reason he didn't stay on the Rangers is because every time he was on the ice during the playoffs, they lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a young team overall, right?
Yeah.
You know, like leadership are going to come from guys like Andrew Ladd, who's the oldest guy on this roster, I believe, at 36. Yep, he's the oldest guy.
Yep.
You know, he's a fourth line guy at this point. His career's kind of big downturn. He's just not the player he used to be in his prime. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of youth at center, right? You see a 22-year-old in Barrett Hayton, Nathan Smith at 23, and then Jack McBain at 22. Will those players keep improving? You had Hayton with 24 points in 60 games for a young player. That's not bad. Nathan Smith in limited action, 10 games played, 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points. Again, not bad. He's still on an ELC contract. And then you got Jack McBain in 10 games, 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points. And you're hoping these ELCs and these young players develop. The one worry for me is unless Schmaltz gets moved to the center position on that first line is you're going to have a lot of youth and a lot of inexperience. Now, Hayton did have 60 games last year in the Big Show, so hopefully he keeps developing. But I see this as a forward group that will be, I mean, outside of Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz, who were just a hair under a point per game, I don't know where the offense is going to be coming from. I just don't. I don't know if they're good enough right now to even be considered average.
Yeah. I mean, they have a bunch of guys in their minor system that have put up some points here and there. A lot of guys came up and they worked with the team, all that stuff. But if you look at all their minor guys, they have a lot of potential in their prospect system. Most of their guys, they have at least like anywhere from I think it's 6 players and up that are second early third round players all the way to first round as forwards, and even defensive they have two guys that are third round, second round. But again, I mean, if you're looking for those guys to come on the scene and explode, I mean, this is a full blown out rebuild. But the problem is that with Arizona, it's been a rebuild for years.
It's been a rebuild since their inception, essentially.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it's rough, man. It's very, very rough. And I mean, the product's not great up front. Now, on the defensive end, I mean, Gostisbehere, offensively, not bad, right? 51 points, 82 games, not bad. Minus 23 ain't great. I slotted on cap friendly, and this isn't obviously finished depth chart. You have Dyson Mayo, 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points, 6-7 games, minus 22. Chikrin, 47 games, 7 goals, 14 assists, 21 points, minus 20. Connor Timmins, 0-0-0 in 6 games played, minus 6. And then you have Patrick Nemeth, like you said, struggled at times with the Rangers, and even in the postseason. Yeah. And then you have Troy Stetcher, there's no one out here that I'm oh my God, amazing, right? Even Chikrin himself, I think can be a top 2 pairing defenseman, but it's kind of hard to judge these guys because when you watch Arizona games, man, defensively sometimes they will be very poorly positioned, or they just play it very, I don't know, they play a very up and down game, to put it very politely. Yeah. There's not really any refinement to that game. I mean, what are your thoughts on this defense? Because I just see a lot of, younger guys, right, with the 23, 24, 26. 29s, you're kind of in your prime. 30, you should be in your prime. Same with 28. But it seems like a mixture of some younger guys and some vets. But I don't see much talent.
I mean, we could just start off by looking at their plus minus. There's not one of them that's in a plus. Including Nemeth, who they got from a team that went deep into the playoffs. The fact that he's a minus and that's one
weird.
Of your signings. I mean, now granted, like we said at the beginning of this, is they do have $20 million in cap space. What are they holding on to? What are they not pulling the trigger? I know they're not attractive, so they can overpay on some guys and bring some more to the team, but again, it's one of those where, what are you doing? I mean, you've lost your arena, kind of, right? You've kind of lost your. First of all, you go from an arena that can hold thousands to just a college
5,000.
a college arena that can only hold 5,000. Now, if you can't fill a 5,000, 5,000 in the stands, you're really having a bigger issue, So, I mean, why don't they just pull the trigger and grab somebody off the free agents list, or someone who isn't happy? Like, they're one, if not the only team that can probably grab a freaking Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane. Not saying that they're going to be game changers, but you kind of need the star power. You kind of need the star power. You need something because you have nothing right now.
I think honestly the reason why they're so cheap and more towards the cap floor is because they realize this season's not going to be a financial success, right? You can't run a franchise, an NHL franchise, off 5,000 fans. Yep. You can't. Let's be honest. I don't know if they'll sell that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be blunt because who's going to come to Arizona? Maybe they give away the tickets. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's just they're an embarrassment to the NHL.
Even Hayton, he hasn't signed. He's technically on their roster because he's a restricted free agent, but that doesn't mean he's going to play for the team.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm just assuming because they have so much cap space, he'll be re-signed. But that's a valid point. This is the one bright spot, in my opinion, to the team last season was Karel Vejmelka. I'm going to butcher it. I know some of you assholes in the comment section will say shit about the pronunciation, but I don't care. You know who I'm talking about. 52 games played, 898 save percentage, 3.68 goals against, 13 wins, 32 losses. Now you're like, whoa, what, Paul? Why is that good? If you watched him play, and sometimes it'd be up and down, but he was one of the sole reasons they even won games last year. Yeah. He was phenomenal. I think you get him around an actual team, you could really see something, special. I mean, he reminds me of a way, kind of like Mike Smith, up and down at times, but it's hard to judge him because when you're in front of the worst team in the NHL, that's not terrible statistics. It's just not.
I mean, the big question here is what is their plan? I mean, are they so out of focus with the whole arena, with everything else going on, that they just haven't come to we got a team to build here? Because again, you have all these young players, you have a few veterans, right? But let's face it, these veterans aren't in a good place, and the young guys are learning nothing. They're getting punished every time they go out there. So, what are you really doing, Arizona? We got to figure this out. You guys are in a very offensive-driven division and conference. So, you guys got to really figure something out here. You gotta make some magic happen. Make some trades, whatnot. And if you're gonna rely on the young prospects, I mean, you got a lot of good prospects. Take a look at some of those guys and give them more time. I mean, you have, who was it? They have Dauphin in the minors. Yeah. 38 games played. He had he had 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points. Nothing mind blowing, but obviously he found something that you can build on possibly. But you really don't have anything. Defensively, I mean, again, some more guys, that have potential, but if you're not using them, then what is the point of having them? Start making some moves, trade straight for better drafts. I mean, granted, your draft position, I think in next year's draft, you guys have a really good situation going on, right? Yeah. They have 3 picks in the second round. They have 4 picks in the third round. 3 with 1 conditional one that they got from the Rangers. So are you waiting until next year's draft class? I mean, even with the 2023 draft class, they have just the basics. Round 1, round 2, 2 in the third, that's it. And the 2024, which is 2 years away, that's where they have a lot of actual draft picks. Now, if I was them, I mean, you want to bolster your team, start trading away some of those draft picks and start getting guys that can actually produce for you, because this makes no sense.
No, it does. It makes absolutely no sense. And, like I said, I think the only bright spot on this team is the goaltending. And even that, it's like, I feel bad for him. I mean, I hope he he's 26 years old, so finally came over last year to play. But, I mean, he's probably excited until that 2025. He's like, get me out of here, please, for the love of God. So, I hate to do it to him like this, but let's just get into it, man. I mean, listen. I don't think it's a stretch to assume that you think they're going to be the worst team in the Central, right?
Nope, not at all. They are definitely going to be bottom cellar dwellers.
I mean, okay, listen. I think they finished 8th. That's it. I think you finished 8th as well. Like, I don't think there's anything crazy. We jump into conclusions. I actually have a more interesting proposition, or I would say question. Over under, do they win more than 25 games this season?
Ooh.
They won 25 last season.
I give them 27.
I go under.
I go over. I think that some of those guys grew up a little bit. They'll probably be a little more of a challenge now that they got some games under their belt a whole season, and they know how bad it feels to lose all the time and being considered one of the worst teams. I think that at some point, even with the organization being absolute garbage at this moment, maybe they find some pride within their own gameplay and say, hey, you know what? Forget about the organization. We need to play for each other and really go out there and, give it a decent push. Again, I don't see them coming out of 8th, but, I do expect them to at least repeat or get maybe a couple of wins higher than what they did last season.
I'm thinking 21 wins because that's my number. I think... just that 106 goal differential from last year so God. Bad. So, I don't think we're going out crazy, standard saying that. But before we move on to an actual NHL franchise, anything you would like to add?
Arizona, if you need a head coach or anybody to help with your coaching, just hit us up here at the show. We'll be more than happy to take the reins and help you guys out. Because at this point, you probably have guys that are way less hockey smart at this point. So you might as well, hire some guys like us to actually look at games and look at gameplay and see what you can do to hopefully improve the franchise. Just saying. My services are available.
They are available.